It's Thursday, October 26, 2017. I'm your host, Sarah Beal. Thank you for joining us. We have a great show in store for you today. On today's show, we will learn all about the Diamondback Terrapin Head Start program with Natural Resource Officer Amy Croteau. Then we will learn about the Mommy Mixer Group and an upcoming first aid class with Recreation Program Coordinator Melanie Mimo. Finally, we will get an update from Cape and Islands State Senator Julian Cyr. But first, let's get a look at today's top headlines. Maintenance dredging operations are scheduled to commence within the Barnstable Harbor entrance channel on or about November 1st. Work is permitted 7 days per week, and hours of operation will vary depending on the tide cycles. The work is anticipated to be completed by the end of November or early December, contingent upon weather and other factors. The project involves mechanically dredging an estimated 6,868 cubic yards of sediment from the existing 60-foot wide channel. Dredge materials will be disposed offshore at the Cape Cod Bay disposal site. The channel will remain open to commercial and recreational boats throughout the dredging project. Boaters are urged to exercise caution when passing near the dredging rig. Oyster season is upon us here in the town of Barnstable. Oyster season will be open in the town, both the south side, Bay Street, Osterville, and the north side, Scudder Lane, Barnstable, on Wednesday, November 1st. You must have a shellfish permit in order to harvest oysters, which you can get Monday through Friday at the Marine and Environmental Affairs offices on Finney's Lane from 8:30 to 4:15 p.m. Please remember the limit is half a peck per week. If you have any questions, please call 508-790-6272. The Massachusetts Cultural Council has renewed the Hyannis High Arts Cultural District designation. Renewing the designation for the next 5 years presents a tremendous opportunity to strengthen the town's existing arts and cultures initiatives, to provide new opportunities to support and promote the creative economy, and to enhance the cultural collaborations within all of our villages. Through a series of arts-oriented initiatives in the Hyannis High Arts Cultural District, the town has successfully integrated arts and culture into the socio-economic fabric of our community. The existing concentration of cultural, economic, and historic resources in the Hyannis High Arts Cultural District, coupled with a strong community commitment to further enhance the vitality of the area, made it an excellent candidate for redesignation. For more information on high arts, please visit www.highartsdistrict.com. The Adult Supportive Day Program is a community-based, professionally operated program at the Barnstable Senior Center, which has been a trusted resource for local families for over 18 years. The Adult Supportive Day Program provides a safe, comfortable, and welcoming environment to elders and seniors who cannot or wish not to stay home alone during the day. If you are a caregiver in need of respite or a senior who may benefit from the Adult Supportive Day Program, they would be happy to meet with you and to discuss how they may help meet your needs. Please call 508-862-4765 to schedule a tour and a free trial day. Up next, let's learn about the Diamondback Terrapin Head Start program with Amy Croteau. I'm here at the MEA headquarters on Finney's Lane with Amy Croteau. She's a natural resource officer here in the town, and we're going to talk about Diamondback Terrapin Head Start program that you guys do. So
yes,
let's get right into it because we got so many little cute guys right behind us.
Yeah. So most people are familiar, at least at this point, that we have a Head Start program, and we get special permits from the state that allow us to move nests that are laid at Sandy Neck within the ORV corridor. The weight of vehicles traveling over them would crush the eggs underneath. We move those nests into safe dunes and then hatch them out, usually in the garage at Sandy Neck. And then before they go out to our classrooms, they actually come here to live with me for close to a month and a half while I get them on our specially formulated hatchling pellet diet. These guys hunt in nature in the water column, so they can't have food that sinks down to the bottom. They prefer to have food that floats up at the top so they can see it. And it stimulates them to eat. After they've been eating for at least a week solidly, then I can start farming them out to classrooms. This year I received at the beginning of September 64 hatchlings in very rapid succession. And so we've been working super hard to get them up and running so they can get into their classrooms for their own personal head starting. So what we have here is our standard 30-gallon terrapin tank. It's not a full-on aquarium. Half of the glass on one side is missing, and that's because you never fill the tank completely with water when you have a turtle tank. We have our filter running here. that helps keep the water clean. And then we have learned through head starting that our terrapins prefer to be in water temperatures that range from 68 degrees to 84 degrees, but that they're most likely to start eating initially when the temperature is between 78 and 82.
Oh, wow.
So right now these guys are at a nice comfy 84. Most everyone in this tank has been eating routinely. Diamondback terrapins are a unique species in Massachusetts in that they're the only brackish water species of turtle that we have, meaning that they live in water that is a little bit salty and a little bit fresh. So along with having a special temperature, they also need to have a special salinity. And so long as the salinity of any tank falls between 10 and 18 parts per thousand of salt, then they are happy. They don't get, dehydrated or oversalted. And then that makes them very comfortable. So you might be wondering why they're all sort of separated from one another. So diamondback terrapins, when they're young, are of course very cute, but they become territorial relatively quickly. And even at this small size, if one falls asleep and the other one is paying attention, they will nip at their toes and occasionally at their tails. And so you want to keep them separate from one another. And in fact, once they have doubled in size from what they are now, they'll be very territorial with one another and are kept completely separate from one another in the tanks in their schools.
Wow.
You also might be wondering why I have 40-something yogurt containers here. And that is because you want to feed them outside of the tank. Turtles create an insane amount of organic matter feces on their own, and the tanks can become very dirty very quickly if you choose to feed them in the tank. Furthermore, if you feed them in the tank, you can see that the water flow here would simply push all of the food to about this stall.
Right.
Nobody down here is going to get fed, nobody over here is going to get fed. So we take lukewarm fresh water that is about the same temperature as it is in the tank that they're sitting in, and you fill it up a little over halfway, so that way if they stand up on their back toes, they can peek their heads out of the water. And then you drop a bunch of pellets in there, and typically within the first 10 minutes, everyone will start eating. And once we see that behavior from them routinely, then we can give them out to their classrooms. And how I do that here is, if someone is eating, then I will put a check mark on their tank. If they've only just tried food for the first time, then I put a dot. So at the end of feeding today, what we'll end up with is pretty much everybody in this tank and in this tank will have check marks. They're all ready to go. I'm just waiting for the classrooms to get there. And everyone in this tank has only just recently started eating food this week. And so we're still monitoring to make sure that they will eat continuously before we can give them out.
Right. So you said you had 64 at the start of September.
Yes.
Is that a really high number, or is that basically where you usually are every year?
I get pretty maxed out, depending on how quickly they come at me, at 70 terrapins. That's about what I can do comfortably. I have 3 tanks that are set up completely, and then 1 tank that I have that's empty, that was sort of on standby. So if they all started growing quickly and started eating one another before I had the opportunity to get them into schools, and I still have 1 spare tank that we can move into for keeping them safe from one another, essentially. And then, it does vary from year to year. This is one of the highest years. We did have 69 terrapins once, I want to say, either 2 or 3 years ago.
Wow.
But the year before that, we only had 25.
Wow.
This year's Head Start season is extremely crucial because they had a smart predator on Sandy Neck. There was a fox that figured out how to flip over the milk crates that they used to put over the nests to keep them safe from predators, and they lost about 50% of the nests that they had out there out in nature. So these guys are going to be, really important in the next 5 to 10 years when they reach sexual maturity and, bringing new terrapins to Sandy Neck.
Can you talk a little bit about the diamondback terrapin and how it's an endangered species? And
so it is a federally threatened species.
Okay.
It's endangered in the state of Rhode Island. In the state of Massachusetts, it is listed as threatened. And so all of the classrooms, including ourselves, have to have special permits that allow us to even have these in our custody. And as they're threatened, they get, sort of special protection. There are no hunting seasons on diamondback terrapins in Massachusetts. That being said, we're the northernmost of their range, and when you get further down south, protections are often less in some of the southern states where these animals are more prevalent. There are 7 different subspecies that reach all the way from the Gulf up to here.
Wow.
And part of the reason that is because the further south you go, the longer they have to feed throughout the year. And so they just sort of have developed into slightly different versions of their northern, cousins down south. So there are places down south where you can buy these in pet stores, and there are hunting seasons in a couple of states for them still. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, but they're a little bit different than what we have up here, so it's not like
exactly like their
same.
Populations are managed. When you have a species that's federally threatened but not on the endangered species list, then it's up to the state to decide how much protection they want to afford to each individual animal. It's similar to the argument that's going on with grizzly bears right now. So our state manages it differently because our populations are lower than, say, they would be in some place like Florida.
Now, are these turtles that you would only find out on Sandy Neck, or are they found in other parts of the town?
So in Barnstable, they're really only found in Barnstable Harbor. That is sort of that 6-mile stretch of beach, and all of the marsh there is where they live. There's always one female that comes across Barnstable Harbor every year and tries to lay a nest in the parking lot at Barnstable Harbor Marina. And every year we relocate her to Indian Trail. And occasionally you do see them swimming across to maybe somewhere in Yarmouth, but they're vastly on the north side of town in Barnstable. If you ever see a turtle in the salt water on the south side of town, by and large it is a snapping turtle and not a diamondback terrapin.
Interesting, yeah. Coming up, we'll get an update from State Senator Julian Cyr. But first, Melanie Memo gives us an update on how fall programs are going. Melanie, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks for coming down to the studio. I know you've never been here before, so
thanks for having me.
It's something different. We're going to talk about some of the fall programs that you have going on specifically. First one I want to talk about is the Mommy Mixer Group. I know you started this a few years ago when you had your first son, and I love that it's still going.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the Mommy Mixer class.
So we meet every Wednesday at the Centerville Recreation Building from 9 to 11. It's drop-in, and generally it's free to come. Occasionally there's a fee to participate. We do all kinds of toddler sensory activities or arts and crafts, games, and it's open to all ages. I have my 5-month-old that also comes too. Nice. So yeah, we welcome pretty much any mom, grandmothers come, dads, anyone with a little one.
Nice. So. That's awesome. Yeah. And you guys are going to do a special Halloween.
Yeah, we have our huge Halloween party next Wednesday. It's a costume contest, and we have all kinds of stuff planned. So.
Painting pumpkins and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
all kinds of stuff.
All the little babies will come in their costumes, and they're so cute in their costumes. I think one of the pictures that you sent us was like a little baby Yoda.
Yeah, that's my son.
That's
my son with, I think, a ladybug friend.
Yes, so adorable, so adorable. So that's great that the Mommy Mixers group is going on. Did you say what time that they meet on Wednesdays?
9 to 11.
9 to 11, and that's at the Centerville Rec Building. Yeah. So like you said, drop in. And every once in a while it'll be a fee if you're doing a craft that needs to be paid for. But other than that, it's just a free, just come down and meet with other moms and bring your babies.
Yeah, and we're sponsored by Cape Cod Healthcare.
Oh, that's great.
They gave us a grant to run the program, so that's why it's free. And we'd love to have 50 moms if we can. So come on down and check it out.
Oh, that's wonderful. We also want to talk about some of the other fall programs that you're in charge of.
Sure.
So we have field hockey, archery, tennis, and soccer. So let's start with field hockey. That seems to be kind of picking up. I remember when I was in junior high, field hockey was like the hot new sport, and I feel like it's starting to come back again.
Yeah, I've got a great group of kids. My middle school, my 6th and 7th graders are actually scrimmaging the high school JV team tomorrow.
Oh, that's so cool.
And the high school team, we've partnered with their coach to do a lot of different things. So we're doing another clinic. Our last clinic of the season is on Saturday. So they go over to the high school, and the high school girls kind of introduce them to some new skills, and they scrimmage, and it's just like a fun morning of field hockey.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I know the archery, I know that really kind of built up some steam after the Olympics a few years back, and then with, the Hunger Games, people really got into archery. So I know that's been a big program.
Everybody has an inner Katniss. It's really fun. So they, the kids come out. We have a full USA archery sanctioned range with targets, real bows and arrows.
Wow.
And so the kids learn all the safety rules that they need to know, and a lot of them actually take off with it, and they seek out other ranges and getting equipment for their own home use, and It's kind of it's like just a fun individual sport for kids who might not like a mainstream sport. It's but definitely it takes a lot of skill. And
oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I love that there's so many kids getting involved in, it doesn't have to just be like soccer or football or the usual sports. I mean, you do offer things like archery that, like you said, it's an individual sport, but it does take a lot of skill and practice to be good at it. So I think that's great that you offer those. You also have soccer and tennis, which are always popular. I know those are always like, ones that people always sign up for.
Yep. So those are coming to an end in the next couple weeks. So Lee Doherty, he runs UKSD, and he's our head soccer guy, which is everybody loves Doc. So his program's running strong, over 120 kids.
Wow.
So that's on Saturdays as well, and tennis also a fun full program as well this fall. Our tennis instructor David's running a great class. So
wonderful. The last thing we wanted to talk about is that you're partnering with the Red Cross to offer a one-day CPR, AED, and what's the third one?
First aid.
First aid. First aid class on November 11th, and you're looking for people to sign up. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so it's $75, which is cheap compared to what other, either American Heart Association, the Red Cross is a little more expensive. So we're offering a cheaper class, same certification, and anybody can sign up to do it. So if you need it for your job or sometimes for school, some schools require it. We'll be offering that. It's a full day class, so bring a lunch, and once you're done, you'll get certified and be on your way.
Yeah, it's great, and I know some people just want to have that because it's a great skill to have, because you never know when something is going to happen.
Right,
so.
And we're going to cover pediatrics, so babies all the way through adults.
That's awesome.
So they'll know how to do every life-saving maneuver they'll need to know for those ages.
Okay, so that's on November 11th from, what was it, 9 to?
9 to 3.
9 to 3. And if people want to sign up, how can they do that?
They can visit our website and create an account, register there, or they can come down to the Hyannis Youth and Community Center and register in person.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming in
Thanks
today and talking to us all about these great fall programs and the First Aid CPR AED class.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. My guest today is Melanie Mimo. She's a program coordinator at the Recreation Division. Julian, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great to be here, Sarah. Welcome.
We're going to talk about the Cape Tech vote that's coming up on October 24th. You and Rep. Sarah Peak recently worked with the MSBA to kind of get them to recalculate their contribution. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Exactly. So this is a project, the renovation of the Cape Cod Technical School. This serves actually all the towns on the Cape that I represent, so from Provincetown to Mashpee. Proposal to build a new school is going before the voters on October 24th. The state had committed through the Mass School Building Authority to provide a certain amount of funding, I think around 42% reimbursement of all the costs. And Representative Sarah Peak and I were able to work with the Mass School Building Authority and work on some legislation really to make sure that our communities get a more favorable outcome for the formula. It's a little bit complicated, but basically it takes, the formula looks at need of students. And socioeconomic factors. And given that enrollment in a technical school sort of fluctuates, the students who are in the school changes year to year, in looking at 2016 numbers, we'd get a 42% reimbursement. If we took 2015 numbers, which we were able to get through in legislation, then that's more favorable for the district. So that means more than $5.1 million in additional state funding for this project if the voters approve it. Over the course of, that $5.1 million would have been absorbed by taxpayers with interest. So it's going to be over $10 million in savings for taxpayers here on the Cape and Island, something I'm really proud about. Sarah Peaks, my colleague in the House, did tremendous work to get us there. And I was able to get something through as well in the Senate. So really good news. Certainly I support the Cape Cod Technical School. I think this is something that when we look at what our community needs are, and how do we really give opportunity to Cape Codders who are growing up here and who want to make a life here. We need people who are going to stay here to work in the trades, who are serving our community. If you look at our aging demographic, we need folks who look like you and me and younger really to stick around. Yeah. So I'm a big supporter of this, and actually the entire Cape delegation who represents these towns all supports the Cape Tech vote.
Yeah, great. I think that's wonderful. I know that's been one of the big things that people have been kind of concerned with is how are we going to pay for this? It's a big thing, and I know here in the town of Barnstable, it was a big concern. So we had our previous vote. So we're kind of in a good place, and this is it's good news across the board. This is going to be savings for everybody. So going into that vote on October 24th, people can know that the numbers come down a little bit about what everybody's piece of the pie is going to be.
It's really good news, and it's one of these things that this is not sort of business as usual. So we had to work really hard to get Mass School Building Authority, to get our colleagues in the legislature on board. It's before the governor now. Hopefully he will sign that very soon, and we can just bring a little bit back to our constituents.
Wonderful. Another thing that you want to talk about today is some veto overrides of the governor's budget.
Yes, so we as a delegation, we have a great bipartisan delegation on the Cape and Islands. Worked really hard to get a lot of key priorities for the region. Funding for the Fire Training Academy, services for Children's Cove that responds to abused children. How do you address some issues around homelessness? A project between HAC and the CDP, which is an entity on the Lower Cape, to train people to be advocates for more housing affordability and workforce housing. So the legislature, we put this into the budget. Governor Baker actually vetoed over $500,000 in funding for Cape priorities. The House has taken up those vetoes and overridden the governor, and the Senate is doing the same. So we're going to be able to get those dollars actually here to our communities. So that's really good news. Again, for folks who live on the Cape, just trying to get a little bit. We're definitely a net exporter of resources to the state, but it's good anytime we can try to bring something back.
Give a little bit, get a little bit.
Let's give a lot, but get a little bit. More like that. Yeah.
So that's wonderful. Is there anything else that
the
you're
Senate,
working on?
So we're right in the middle of our of a session now, taking up some pretty big issues. We're going to be debating criminal justice reform in the coming weeks, and actually just this week, a proposal for healthcare reform is being put out by the Senate. If you look at the state's budget, 43% of our budget goes to Mass Health, to our Medicaid program, and it's closer to 50% when you add in all the other health and human services. Really important, right, that we're providing people with health care. We've really pioneered this here in Massachusetts, but the path that we're on isn't terribly sustainable. So the Senate's really taking the lead in how do you figure that out. So a whole host of pretty wonky things that we're sinking our teeth into, but stay tuned to that. So criminal justice reform, healthcare reform, that we'll work to get done before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, wow, really important things that you guys are working on. If any of our residents and your constituents want to get in touch with you or your staff,
they can reach me anytime. We actually have an office right here in Barnstable Town Hall, and then an office at the State House. They can either email me. My email is julian.cyr@masenate.gov, or they can call my State House office. I have a terrific team who works with me. You're only as good in this job as your staff.
Yes.
And so you can reach them at 617-722-1570.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming into the studio.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
My guest today is Julian Cyr. He's the Cape and Islands State Senator. Now let's take a look at our community calendar. America's first woman playwright, Mercy Otis Warren, will be visiting the 1717 Meeting House in West Barnstable. Portrayed by Jane Staub, Mercy will discuss family, writing, and revolution. Taking place Friday, October 27th at 7 p.m., this is part of the 1717 Meeting House's ongoing lecture series. Tickets can be purchased at the door for $15. Sturgis Library recently purchased a library telescope. Join them on Wednesday, November 1st from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. to learn all about it. John Root, an expert on astronomy from the Aldrich Society, will be giving a presentation on the telescope, how to use it, what you can expect to find in the night sky, and how to do so. Highlights include the moons of Jupiter, Saturn's rings, Mercury, and Venus. After the presentation, they will go outside with the telescope and a secondary telescope for a guided tour of the night sky. Great for all ages, free to the public. Sign up in advance by calling the Sturgis Library at 508-362-6636. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow with another great show for you. On tomorrow's show, we will learn about 2 upcoming Halloween events taking place this weekend with recreation staff Mickey Davies and Laura Kelleher. We will also get an update on what's going on out at Sandy Neck Beach Park with Beach Park Manager Nina Coleman. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Beal.